Welcome to New Life Live, the premier place to receive free advice from Christian psychologists and counselors for the mental, emotional, relational, and spiritual challenges you face. Since 1988, we've offered compassionate responses that combine God's truth with proven psychological principles to guide you toward healing. Our phone lines are open. Call us now at 1-800-229-3000.
Hello, everybody. It's Becky Brown today with you. We have a special show ahead. We're also joined by Chris Williams, licensed marriage and family therapist, and Dr. Henry Cloud. Henry is family to New Life. I know many of you have been listening forever, like myself, and I don't know that Dr. Henry Cloud needs much of an introduction to the New Life family, but Henry, you are a pretty amazing psychologist, a healer, look, I know, I'm going to say all the things. And listen, if you had only written Boundaries, that would have changed the world as we know it. But you wrote so many other things that have changed so many people. I think about Changes That Heal, Save People. And now the latest couple, Why I Believe, which I love that book, but now you've come out with the devotional to know him. And as I read through it, Henry, I felt like I was getting to know you even more. So I'm just so grateful that you're here and so curious to hear what inspired you to go in the direction of a devotional.
Well, the subtitle of the book that it comes from, the book the devotional comes from is called Why I Believe, is the one you're talking about. And the subtitle is The Psychologist's Thoughts on Suffering, Miracles, Science, and Faith. And so what actually inspired the original was I just wanted to, I wanted to write a book that I could give to my non-believing friends to help them understand, here's why I believe this stuff. And it came out of my own hitting bottom and suffering, and then God showing up and doing a bunch of miracles. And then I had questions about science, and he solved all of those. And then how faith integrates into all that. And so the book is kind of that story. Well, the devotional was, as the book talks about, knowing God is a process. And it's about getting to know him, and getting to know him really is going to involve all of those things. There's suffering that he certainly can and does and will enter into. And like Moses said in Deuteronomy 6, we were slaves in Egypt. There's the suffering, and God brought us out with a mighty hand, and there's the miracles part. And then it says he gave us all these ways that we should walk in them. So the devotional takes people through a day-by-day walk, and they're little bitty snippets, so you don't have to spend a lot of time, because that's kind of how we grow anyway, is little bitty steps.
I love, my favorite part of the devotional, though, Henry, is the prayers, because they're so personal, and I know a lot of times people struggle in their faith to talk to God, and though they were just beautiful, and I think that they're going to encourage so many people.
Becky, can you imagine, or just imagine, you've got kids, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine when your baby was born, coming in with a college communications course to tell them how to talk to you? Mm-hmm. And that's what's happened to so many of us. We've been steeped in all this churchiness forever and these phrases and blah, blah, blah. God just wants us to talk to him. You're his child. Mm-hmm. It's got to be real.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to talk a lot more to you, Henry, after the break. We're going to hear from you too, Chris. And listeners, if you want to call in, you call us, 1-800-229-3000. We're going to take calls for 2 hours. This first hour is dedicated specifically to Dr. Henry Cloud and his newest devotional, his only devotional, to know him. And we'll talk to y'all after the break.
I became aware that my husband had had an affair. He was viewing porn on the computer. I was totally unaware of anything like sex addiction. Through the workshop, I truly believe my soul has been restored. The workshop educated me about what sex addiction was. It also gave me courage. I learned how to stand up for myself. Without a doubt, it was the most significant thing that I did.
The Restore Intensive is coming to Washington, D.C. November 7th to the 9th. Register online at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Enter the code NLL for a discount.
That workshop is where I found the tools and the people to heal from this most heartbreaking thing of my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE and the discount code NLL. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back to New Life Live. Becky Brown here with Chris Williams and Dr. Henry Cloud. And like I said in the open, Henry, you are part of the New Life family. You just came out with this
Becky.
new devotional. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's interesting, you talk about part of the family. I was listening to the intro, and it said since, I think, 1988, this show has been. Actually, it was 87, because when we started this show in 87, it was on KKLA in Los Angeles, and it was before there was a Salem network. It was their first station, and then it kind of grew as those networks grew.
Henry, that all those years ago, I don't think I was even practicing at that time, but I heard the show about.
You weren't even born, but you.
No, no. You can tell by the color of my hair that I was definitely born. but I remember in those early.
In third grade. So, we were kids when we started this thing.
I know, but isn't it amazing? All these years later. And it's just amazing to me because it's impacted my life. It's impacted so many people's lives all those years ago, combining our faith and counseling and psychology. I mean, who'd have thunk all these years later, and what an impact. And that's been really the core of what we've been doing all these years. But I'm just so grateful that you're still doing the work. One of the things that you had mentioned in why I believe is that shift to leadership. But what an opportunity to help people know more about Jesus, because they would get to know you, and then they would get to know your faith journey. In the devotional, you even talked about this in the opening about this is a journey. Our faith is not static. It's not just one and done. And so the devotional is a great way for people to start their own journey if they haven't done yet.
Well, and I think it just makes everything so accessible. And so for me, reading Henry's work, reading John's work, reading Steve's work, reading, Dave and Jill, and then being a part of it has been remarkable. But I'll tell you this, sometimes when we read, for myself, I'll read.
Well, Chris, I have to say, way back when, I think, I don't think you were regular. You did, maybe you came on once, and I told Steve, that guy's good.
Well, thank you.
That guy's good. You should.
You're done now, Chris.
Yeah, I passed. No, but honestly, that's a huge compliment, and I think the strength of these last two works, and me over this last week going through To Know Him, the 90-day devotional, is that when we read in books that influence us so profoundly, we make the author, I make the author larger than life. Henry Cloud is larger than life. However, we know that there is, a human being behind all of that. I think the power of these last two works for me is getting a deeper look into the person behind the work. The journey, the vulnerability and the honesty that you share throughout this process, for me, makes it so accessible and so relatable. And quite honestly, I think Purpose Well Done gives me that greater hunger. because like you, I have so many friends who aren't Christians, guys that I grew up with my entire life, been hesitant to share with them. And you just engage in the conversation of not from this grand apologetic or deeply theoretical or theological position, but just, hey, here is what everyday life with God looks like for me. The good, the bad, the ugly, and ultimately the redemptive. And so I can't encourage people enough, especially people like myself, of like, if you want an entry point, an accessibility for your own relationship with God, but also just in the simplicity of sharing it with where you are, not where you're not, these two works are really important.
Well, thanks for that. It's kind of interesting, originally I was going to call the main book To My Friends, because I have so many non-believing friends. They know I'm one of those weirdos, but they sort of set that aside and they're still my friend anyway. But I feel like I want them to know Jesus.
Yeah.
And I mean, we need to talk about this. Someone just write it for you. And that's how it started, but it's been interesting. That's why I'm encouraged by what you say, Chris, and you too, Becky, that what the feedback has been, yes, people are buying these and giving them to their friends because it's hard for them to have that conversation too, and the book does it for you. But it's what I've been really touched by is the Christians that have said it's a spiritual growth book for them.
Yeah.
So, and when you think about it, the book's about suffering and what God does in suffering and how we grow and how we change, and that's kind of for all of us. I just hope it helps Christians go deeper. A lot of them said it's really answered some doubts that they had and the science part and all that, but for non-believers, they've liked it. So I hope
that surprises you, Henry. The most surprising.
I have a lot of friends. We lived in Los Angeles until a couple of years ago. I lived there, for a long time, and in our neighborhood. There's not a lot of organ music playing up there. and some of these conversations are very divisive for something. Because once you're a Christian, they put you in this box, and they think it means 15 other things. And what I was trying to show was, no, just get rid of all that and just look at who God is and how this relationship actually works, and you can check the other boxes later.
Well, Henry, to Chris's point, you are larger than life to so many of us in this field, and just, being privileged to serve here at New Life. The thing that surprised me the most, both why I believe as well as to know him, was your journey through the medical challenges, the depression, and your vulnerability in sharing that. It was really powerful. And how do you hope sharing that encourages someone else? The calls that we take every day here at New Life Live.
Yeah.
And, being real like that's pretty powerful. Well,
it's one thing to write a book or sit in a chair and say, hey, if you're depressed or, you're struggling with an addiction or you got anxiety attacks or whatever, here's what you do. Well, that's helpful. But it's another thing to hear.
That's okay.
But the person the stuff I'm telling you, I didn't get all this from a book. I know.
Yeah.
I know he can be known. And I know that he can heal you. And I know he has ways that can transform the stuff you're going through. And so for me to start out there, in that how I came to know this stuff because he did it, and I'm in the chair where they are now if they're really, really suffering. I was in that chair, and you read the book. I mean, I didn't leave anything out. You look at it, you go, good night. How's this guy still walking around? But I had to start there because that's the truth about how this works, at least in my life. And, you know, obviously we've worked with many people over the years, but also it can work for you too.
I think so many people will hear that, Henry, and feel assured that you have walked this path. You mentioned also about your family had a faith, but it was kind of quiet in the background, kind of faith. But yet it became foremost in front of you in your life. And, thinking about your parents' example of living out their faith in service, how did that shape your spirituality?
It's interesting. So I grew up in a Christian home because it was true. I mean, I went to church every Sunday. My parents were involved in the church. My mother kept the nursery. I could get this, infants and toddlers for 25 years every Sunday.
Wow.
My father used his business. We were in the Deep South in Vicksburg, Mississippi. He used his business to do so much social impact stuff in the city. He was very involved with a lot of black churches, which, back then, was very different, back then in the Deep South. And they were involved in Meals on Wheels. He was chairman of the Warrior Salvation Army. That was their life, was serving people. And I don't even know really that I connected it so much. That's the Christian thing to do. It's just how they did it, but it did come from their faith. Because when I say Christian home, when you say that today, it means Bible verses on the breakfast table and devotionals and, all
right.
this stuff. That was, we said grace and prayers and at night before bedtime, went to church. But it was just a normal dysfunctional Southern family. And I struggled with my faith in this way, and I talk about this in the book, that when I was a kid and growing up and a teenager and in the first part of college, I would say, I like God, I just don't like his friends.
Yeah.
The Christians that I knew, the people that were outed as Christians, they didn't go to the prom and they didn't dance and they didn't do all this stuff. And I just couldn't relate to that crowd. And all of my friends were sort of on the other side of that fence, but I wasn't as bad as they were. So I wasn't doing a lot of things that they were doing. But so I kind of sat in this middle until I hit bottom and I had to jump in with both feet, and that sort of changed. And then I found out that Jesus was not like a lot of his friends, and he really had a lot of friends on the other side of the tracks spiritually. So that really was part of the process, integrating the background into kind of how I see life now.
That's awesome. Chris, you can jump in.
He's telling my story, that I grew up going to youth group, and I would be caught in between these two worlds. And honestly, feeling the tension of hypocrisy, being one way with my sports and school friends and being another way with my church friends, and being caught in between both worlds. And but in the midst of it,
and even if you're not being a different way,
it feels
the
different.
Fact that you're in those gets confusing until you understand what the scriptures say.
Yeah, well, and
instead of what the church says a lot of times.
Well, right. And part of that is like the in groups, the out groups, this group or that group. But what I appreciate about Henry's writing, and really expresses it well for me. And I always say, this, you see this example in the book of John, where I think it's the greatest apologetic on planet Earth, where the man who was born blind is healed, and he starts getting interrogated, by all these different people, and especially the really important people. And finally, of course, I always give the Chris Williams version, but in his exasperation, it's like, would you guys just leave me alone? I don't have an answer for your questions. All I know is I was blind, but now I see.
There you go.
And so it's just a reminder, like for me, in the tension, what resolved the tension between the in-group, the out-group, this group or that group, and where I belong, is having these moments in life where I know that God showed up for me, that Jesus was there in the moment. And it's like, I don't know all of the other questions, but I know there's a God, and I know He loves, and I know He loves me. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of times and circumstances in life where that gets challenged and questioned, even painfully at times. But man, does it keep coming back to it. And man, am I grateful for other people like Henry who've traveled the road a little bit further than me and that say, yes, Chris, your experience is real and it's legitimate.
Me too. Okay, we're going to take a quick break talking to Dr. Henry Cloud about To Know Him, his devotional.
I went to Every Man's Battle in 2012. My sexual integrity was not what it should have been. I sought out affairs, whether physical or emotional. Until I came to Every Man's Battle, I didn't understand that would never fill that void.
Every day, men struggle with sexual integrity. Impure thoughts, strip clubs, affairs, pornography.
The shame and guilt was overwhelming.
For over 20 years, New Life Ministries has been helping men regain their integrity through their one-of-a-kind Every Man's Battle Intensive.
You will discover what the true root of your pain is, and you will discover how to overcome.
You don't have to struggle any longer. Get help in Dallas, Texas, November 7th through the 9th. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE to register or to find out more. 1-800-639-5433 or online at newlife.com. Enter the code NLL for a discount.
Every Man's Battle saved my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE and the discount code NLL. Club New Life changes lives.
You guys came along into my life in 2022. That was a really, really difficult year of my life.
You can help New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people by joining Club New Life today.
I began to really process a lot of things that I've needed to for a long time, and y'all were a very big part of that.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
I came out of it having never experienced anything like that, and y'all were there.
Join today and help continue the message of hope to a troubled world.
I knew I had to keep going, and I joined Club New Life, and y'all have been the resource that has now been a light for my wife and I.
Go to newlife.com/CNL, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places.
Keep doing what you do because it makes a difference.
newlife.com/CNL. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. I am so excited to share with you all that we have a matching gift going on right now. We had friends of the ministry raise $475,000 as a seed, and so every dollar that you give will be matched until we meet that. I know that you want to be part of what God is doing through New Life, and you can do that through your giving. It makes a difference. Generosity does change people's lives. You can go to newlife.com, click on donate. You can call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and donate that way, or you can text the word match to 28950. Whatever way you give, you will know that your money will go as far as we can possibly stretch it to make a difference in the lives of so many people. I'm going to say thank you in advance for all of your generosity. Today we're talking with Dr. Henry Cloud, and Chris Williams is also joining us. We're talking about Henry's latest devotional, To Know Him. But Henry, I want to go and take a call, and we're going to talk with Tracy.
Becky, can I make one quick comment about something Chris said?
Yes, you sure can.
We were talking about these sort of two worlds, and you got sometimes there's a lot of the stuff, and I love the church, by the way. I'm not trashing the church, the body, but there are some Christians that obviously even we as believers just couldn't. What the heck are they? Who are they? These people, and And that was one of my big struggles I talk about in the book. One of my big obstacles, and I've got a chapter in there called, Jesus, will you please explain your followers to me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
yeah, it's a great chapter.
And and then what happened was when I got into it, and this is what I go into some depth on, what I got into it was when I talk to non-believers, they say, well, Christians are so judgmental and they're so hypocritical and they're just all about the money and they're just, they say all this stuff, but relationally, they're jerks and blah, blah, blah. But I went to the scriptures, and what I end up saying to my non-believing friends a lot of times is, dude, you're a Jesus follower, and you don't know it because the same people that you're bugged at, he was too.
Yes.
That's not what the Bible says.
Yep.
And
That's
a lot
right.
of this Christianese you hear is exactly the opposite of what the Bible says. And that's what was so exciting about this journey. And to know him, the name of the devotional, to know him is to know him and not what you've heard this, quote, Christian, because a lot of what's Christian is not in the Bible. In fact, a lot of it, the way it gets expressed, is the opposite of what Jesus said.
I know, and it's refreshing when we can bust up the incorrect information, that people will live their whole life following something that's not what Jesus, and he wants to make us more like him. And so when we get into the scriptures and really just explore in such a powerful way, it changes us.
Well, and I think that following
and sometimes being more like him is being less like some of the church people.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah. Well, and following Jesus is very challenging and difficult, and it challenges us at deep levels. And right,
Think?
And I honestly think
dying on the cross daily.
Yeah, taking up your cross and following him, denying yourself. Yeah, but I just really believe that so many times we as Christians will create all of these arbitrary rules and regulations and criterion, honestly, to avoid the hard work Christ is trying to do inside of our lives. And if we would continue to look at that surrender and say, hey, the saying I like to have around our house is, I have two boys, and I say, William's boys do hard things. They would just take that to the bank. We as Christians can do hard things. I think we need to keep doing harder and harder things. And the hard thing isn't trying harder. It's honestly surrendering more.
And you know what? I love that saying. Williams boys do hard things. If you back up above that a little bit, humans will do hard things, but you get a choice.
Yeah. Yep.
You can avoid the hard things and do the easy thing now and the hard thing later, and it's going to be way harder.
That's right.
But when you do the hard thing now, it's going to be much easier later. And the rules thing, it's a great example, in Colossians 2, he specifically says, do not submit yourself to rules.
That's so good.
Do not handle, do not taste, do not, kind of paraphrasing. He says, because these have an appearance of wisdom in self-made religion, they are of no value.
Amen. Wow. So good, Henry. Yes.
Wow. That's powerful.
And
all right.
I remember, New Life entered the scene right in that time period. We were fighting battles then, and I mean battles, because, we start recovery programs in churches and all that. The religious people just come after you, and John and I used to have debates with big names that I'm not going to mention, and we would challenge them on biblical grounds, not defending psychology, because the hard work is not going to be overcome by a bunch of rules. It's going to be overcome, like Chris is saying, in going into the suffering. And I'll say one more quick thing and I'll shut up. Sometimes I'll ask a group of even pastors, if you're going to tell your people how to guard themselves from sin or overcome sin, what do you tell them? And usually here, well, you need to pray, you need to be in the Word, and you need to, have community or whatever. So, yeah, all those things are true and great, but let me read a passage to you. You go to 1 Peter 4:1, and it says, arm yourselves, protect yourselves with this purpose and mindset, the same one that Jesus had.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found life recovery. And one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. Do you need help for life's hard situations?
My husband recently said he wanted a divorce.
I'm confused on what I should do.
I have an eating disorder.
New Life Live answers your questions on relationships, grief, addiction, trauma, anxiety, and much more, all from a biblical perspective with our panel of professional counselors and psychologists.
I learn a lot from your program.
You help so many people.
I appreciate your ministry.
Whether you listen or watch, there are so many ways to connect with us to ask our panel of counselors a question. Call us Monday through Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific at 1-800-229-3000 to ask your question on New Life Live. Or go to newlife.com/radio for other ways to get your question answered.
I'm trying to find help.
I just want to know how to set boundaries.
If it's a sin, what am I supposed to do?
Need a therapist or a coach, a resource, or an intensive? Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. 1-800-NEW-LIFE. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Before we went to the break, Henry, you were saying something so powerful that you didn't even hear the music. So finish that thought, please.
Well, I have to ferret out all the different voices I hear, right? I was talking about 1 Peter 4:1, it says, arm yourselves with this purpose that Christ Jesus had, and that is to suffer in the flesh. And here's the kicker. For he who has suffered in the flesh is done with sin.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot of kind of suffering. There's a suffering that, from trying to medicate it, and you get into addictions and all that kind of stuff, and avoiding what Chris is talking about, doing the real suffering of the deep work. But their trauma, their pain, their patterns, they get into that suffering, and what happens? The addiction is resolved because you do the hard work. And that's what I love about what New Life does with all the, the workshops and retreats and counselors and all that, because it is an invitation to go to the dentist and get the thing
Right.
drilled out and fixed.
That's
you
right.
have to have a root canal or lose the tooth later. I mean,
that's right.
It's just the way life works.
Well, so I want to take a call, Henry. We're going to talk with Tracy, who's calling us from Central Oregon, listens on Sirius XM. Tracy, you are here. We're glad you're here. Hello. What question would you like to ask?
Yes. Hi, Doctor. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm excited. I have your devotional on the way coming in. So I
wondered why you sounded so spiritual and mature.
She hasn't gotten it yet, Henry.
I just took my 15 years of recovery back in July. And addiction is rampant in my family. I lost my dad, my brother, my sister. So I'm the only one who found recovery, and that's because I found Jesus. But the road to it in addiction, the road to him, like the church I go to says, it's a hospital, not a country club, is very hard, because the addiction, I feel like you can't have Jesus fully, that relationship, because the addiction will always take over.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It wants to rule. And I found a lot of different things. A little of my background while I'm calling, I've traveled the world. I've owned flower shops my whole life. I love people. I love Jesus. I've been seeking him in one way or the other. I grew up Catholic. My parents were excommunicated for being on birth control. I found a lot of hypocrisy, right? And then I was, just as a kid, I was, everything was boundless for me. It was endless because I loved Jesus so much and the world was so good. And then I moved to Calabasas and learned, that the world, the flesh, the lust of the flesh here in this world is just terrible. And I didn't know how to, it's like the double-minded man. You
right.
know?
So Tracy,
I had a foot in and a foot out. And
yeah, we get it. It's been a journey. But what I want you to be able to do is ask your questions so that we can get an answer from Dr. Henry Cloud. It'd be great.
So
do you have a question that he can answer? Okay, great.
My question is, started off with COVID. I've had I've had 3 surgeries this year. I just came out of cervical spine replacement. They replaced some discs in my neck, and then I got pneumonia and then sepsis and recovery. So I live alone. My family is really helpful. I love the word, but it's finding the motivation of my own because I fight depression because of the recovery, because I'm not the person I used to be with all the medical stuff going on and surgery.
So I'm a little foggy on what the question is.
The question is, how do I find my relationship if I'm living alone? I know that Jesus loves me, but I have a hard time staying in the Word and in that love all by myself in the surroundings of my house in pain and in sickness, So how do I do that without the community
it's something a lot of people struggle with, because when you're in the midst of the pain, all those things will definitely pull you away from the actual medicine. Here's what's fascinating about what you're saying. People, even if you were in the Word, okay, and let's say you made yourself do it somehow in all those obstacles, you're going to go to the Word, and what it's going to tell you in a lot of verses is to go do some things that involve another person. Okay, so a lot of people, how do I connect with God and how do I do all this, alone? Well, the Bible doesn't have a program for an alone life or recovery or thriving or anything else. And so I would say the very first thing that you must do is find some way to do what the Word says. And that means somebody's got to enter in this picture. Something, it may just have to start by Zoom, but you may, if you can't get outside, you may have to reach out to maybe a church that would say, yeah, we'll have somebody come visit you, or have a friend to drop by, or to go on a walk with, or if there's a small group, you could host one. I don't know. But all I'm telling you is that the scriptures tell us, like in Peter, he says that when you're using your gifts with one another, you are administering the grace of God in its various forms. And a lot of people will try to be on a solo track with God. I can't find your grace. I can't find your grace. Well, he's put that into other people with gifts to come give it to us. So it's a little bit like, in some ways, now we certainly have a one-to-one alone relationship with God. I'm not saying we don't. But it says, how can you love God you can't see if you can't love your brother whom you can't see? So it's both. We have an incarnational gospel. And so it's a little bit like this prescription, the Bible, that tells us what the medicine is. You can't just eat the prescription. You got to get it filled and then take the medicine that involves other people with specific skills and gifts. It's not just people. And I talk about that in my book. I mean, I was around people all the time when I was really, really suffering. But I had to connect with people who actually brought something to the party of God's grace.
So powerful. Incarnational gospel. That'll preach right there. I mean, it's such a statement. Tracy, we're going to send you a copy of Why I Believe, since you already are getting the devotional. But I also want to invite you into our life recovery groups. We have them online all over the world. And just like you're talking about, Henry, I would love, Tracy, for you to be the after story, like to say all the obstacles that you face, and then God provided a way for you to connect, and then you impacted the lives. And I know a lot of times we think, no, but I'm in a place of need. And yet the thing that we're called to is to be overcomers. And we can do that with other people. It's not going to be by yourself. And, Chris?
Well, I find...
Becky, the funny thing about all these commandments, you know, the steps start out with, we came to see that we were powerless.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so you can't overcome this addiction. You can't, blah, blah, blah. And then it tells you to do all these things, which are rooted in inability. To ask for help comes out of powerlessness. To talk about our pain, that comes out of pain and powerlessness and brokenness. Your brokenness and your powerlessness, as Paul said, is what this stuff you're talking about, that's what you can boast in, because it doesn't take strength to be able to receive.
Well, and powerlessness, this is going to sound strange, but powerlessness has an energy and a behavior behind it. And there's two primary default systems of powerlessness. One is passivity. Actually, neurologically, we call this hypoarousal, when the body shuts down. The other one is aggression, and that is hyperarousal, when the body ramps up. And so we know we're in powerlessness when we've shut down into hopelessness and retreat and isolation, or powerlessness into aggression, which is anger and criticism and judgment and all of that. But even in this, there's another power, and it's not powerful, that God is asking us to become empowered. That's the incarnational gospel, God with us, and us with others. I mention all of that because I've seen aggression and passivity be incredibly powerful forces in people's life, and excuses of not to connect.
Right.
I'm a part of this golf league, and most of the time I'm part of this golf league to begin.
Now we're talking real.
Well, yeah. Oh, Henry, one of these days you'll fulfill my bucket list when we're on the course together. All of that to say is I call it back pocket questions that to ask guys on the course that I don't know, because I'm usually paired up with someone I don't know, to enter into deeper conversations so we don't use the excuse that men don't go deep. We
That'll preach too?
Yeah.
Well, but we're going to take a break, and then we'll be back right after this.
Club New Life changes lives.
I think I go way back to listening to New Life, learning so much from it, and then becoming a Club New Life member.
Club New Life is a monthly giving family that helps New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people.
I'm so thankful because why I keep giving? Because I keep learning, and I'm so thankful for all the lives that you touch every day and the people's lives. So when I get to still hear the radio show, it's just so encouraging to my heart.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
And one reason I give? Because I feel like sometimes I'm hiding behind a counselor's couch, listening to all this great information, not paying. So my guilt of this great advice is alleviated by being a Club New Life member.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. And together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places. Call 1-800-639-5433 to join Club New Life today. For over 35 years, New Life has been the most trusted name in Christian counseling.
Your ministry has saved my life.
If you struggle with emotional hurt, family or marriage problems, the pit of depression, or the pain of addiction, we can help.
I'm down 100 pounds now from what I was.
I found a counselor through New Life Ministries, and it's just been outstanding.
Our treatment programs provide clinically appropriate solutions from licensed professionals, all in a biblical framework.
I have had problems with alcohol. I think God has ordained this place to be His
is.
You don't have to be a prisoner of your pain. Help is available at 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
She tells me that I'm a new man, and I feel like a new man.
It worked for me, and it can work for them too.
This time it is different.
If you're ready to take the first steps toward genuine spiritual and emotional healing, call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. God can open the door for a better tomorrow.
To get someone that's competent, that's good at what they do, it's been like day and night compared to what I've had before.
Call 1-800-639-5433. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We have been thoroughly enjoying our conversation with Dr. Henry Cloud and Chris Williams. I cut you off, or well, actually the break cut you off. You can finish your thought now that we're back.
Well, it's just kind of piggybacking on what Henry was saying, and that is oftentimes we look at these things of connecting with other people as really challenging, really scary. It is an act of vulnerability. But I mentioned that I put 2 questions in my back pocket to ask guys so that they're an invitation to go a little bit deeper. And if we're going to get vulnerable, someone has to lead, and I don't mind leading. But all of that to say is it may be scary. It may take some perseverance, but relationships do not happen accidentally. Growth, healing, vitality do not happen accidentally, and they require us to take steps of courage to take those steps. And Henry mentioned Zoom and the technology that we have, and I just can't encourage people enough. If you're struggling in this area, as Becky mentioned, we have life recovery groups. And one of the things that I didn't know when I got into recovery is I needed a time for a group to happen, a time and day, and it didn't exist. And of course, my sponsor said, well, that means that you're supposed to start it. And so, and I didn't feel like I had enough recovery to be qualified. He's like, there is no qualification, just someone willing to start it. So I just mention all of that because when God empowers us, and he usually empowers us at the edge of our action and faith, that then we can be the solution to the very problem that we're struggling with. And in relationship and connection, I believe that we are in desperate need of that in our world today.
I love it. That's the reason why I'm so excited about this devotional, Henry. You know, you mentioned earlier about the connection between science and faith, and in the devotional, To Know Him, you share about your own story so others will encounter God's love and reality. But what's your greatest hope for how this collection of devotionals will make an impact for readers?
Well, it's the title, To Know Him. To know Him is life. And there is no life apart from Him. The scripture says that, but the story that I tell in there, my story tells that. The parts of life that were disconnected from His healing. You know, it's interesting. In Ephesians 4, Paul's talking to Christians, and he says, don't be like the Gentiles who are separated from, they're not separated from God, these are believers, but separated from the life of God, and who have gone beyond feeling and then been given over to all these other stuff with a continual need for more. And when, once we get away from the pain and the vulnerability that we can't even feel anymore because we're depressed instead of sad, for example, or wounded instead of PTSD instead of the pain that's got to be processed. Once you get past that, then no answer. We need more and more and more answers until we get back connected to His life. So my hope for the devotional is it'll just be a daily way of connecting to the life of God, because that's what we need.
And the what you said earlier about the prayer, it really is, God's desire for His children to go to Him and to know His heart and His character. And you've done a great job in bringing people into that. In these last few moments, I want to hear just a message from you, Henry, as somebody gets this devotional, and they can get it from newlife.com. You can call us and we'll send you one. What do you want people to do with their relationship with God?
Oh, so many things in one thing. Jesus said you can sum it all up and love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And most of the times when some area of our life is not working, we might be knowing him with our heart, you love him and all that. Or our mind, we hear about him and study about him, we know stuff. Or our soul, we're bringing him into various aspects of how we feel and live. Or our strength, you're doing a bunch of stuff. But there's some way in which all that's got to be integrated in order to thrive, and in order to be whole. And what I hope the book does is, because in the way the devotional goes over that whole path, things that had to change in my mind, things that had to change in my soul, things that had to change in my heart, and also gaining strength that I didn't have, in order to thrive. And I would hope the devotional gives it's just like, how do you grow a body? You feed the kid one meal at a time, and that's what a devotional does. It's a day at a time.
I love it. And I know the readers will love it as well. And your heart is in every sentence, in every day. But I love that your heart is connected with Scripture. I mean, that's what moves you, Henry, and you want people to know Jesus. And that's what you've done in this book, is you've invited them into that journey. So thank you.
Okay, so Becky, I have a I usually start the top of the show when I give my thing of confessions with Chris. I have a confession. So usually when I'm talking about Nathaniel, when he says about Jesus and Nazareth, can anything good come from Nazareth? So there's a little bit of a backstory, but in college, I went to school in the South, and we took a history of the Civil War, survey of the Civil War, and we did a Civil War tour, and one of the stops was Vicksburg, Mississippi. And so along the way, and I'm from, kind of the Boulder, Denver area of Colorado. And so, not the swankiest area, but it's kind of nice and a little bit different than the Deep South. And so I would always say, in explaining our judgments on people and our prejudgments that leave us out, like if Nathan's if his prejudice on Jesus coming from a certain area, a Hodunk area, almost kept him from meeting the Savior. Well, lo and behold, later in my life, I used to say this. It's like saying, can anything good come from Vicksburg, Mississippi?
Oh, my God. I got to just say one thing about that. Chris, as I heard a lady say one time to a man on a ski lift who was trashing Mississippi, he goes, I just think of, people marrying their cousins and stuff. And she goes, that's interesting. Most literate people think of William Faulkner.
Wow. There you go.
Mic drop.
There you go. But all of that to say is that what I love about Henry, what I love about your work, and most importantly, what I love about God's work in all of us is that the devotion shows us really well. It comes about in the unexpected, least likely places. And that's where I want to encourage people to get this devotional, because it's going to get into the everyday of life. Sometimes it's going to help you connect to the least likely place in your life where God might be hanging out. And so again, get into it. Go through it and see how God may show up for you. And if you're like me, see how this work helps you talk about it in your daily life. It's truly remarkable.
It really is. Thank you, Henry, for giving this gift to the world. I mean, it's going to make a difference. We appreciate you being here today.
It's always a treat to kind of be back home.
Yes, you're welcome anytime. The welcome mat is always out. You know where the key is. No. Thank you, Henry. God bless you. We'll see you next time on New Life Live.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433 or online at newlife.com. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.